Hey groupies.
Hey y'all.
We're back.
Happy Ramadan
Yes,
Kareem.
it is Ramadan. So I guess we're gonna basically gear today's episode to Asana's Ramadan, and we're gonna ask all the questions. We're gonna know everything about her by the end of this episode.
Everything.
Yes. So well, let's start with how is your Ramadan going, or can you give us like a background of what exactly changes when Ramadan starts?
That's a great question. Okay. So my Ramadan is going well. I definitely feel like it's a more personal thing that you choose what you want to do during Ramadan. There is specific things that I feel like everybody does, like fasting or trying to refrain from sex or trying to refrain from cursing. It's basically like 30 days where you try to refrain from sin, you know? So mine is going well. I've been keeping up with all of my things to stay away from.
So is it bad if I call it like a ritual? Is it like a certain way that you go about your day every day during Ramadan? Or can it be a different thing you do the first day from what you do the next day and the next day?
I think
or
that's
like
a
do
good
you
word.
like go with like, you know what I'm saying? So like give us your like, what do you do when you wake up all the way until, like sundown and things like that?
I definitely feel like it's more of a ritual because Ramadan consists of 5 prayers throughout the day. Fajr, what's in the middle? Duhr, Asr, Maghrib, and Isha. So there's 5 prayers and they're spread out hours apart throughout the day. And then on top of that, you're not really supposed to eat sun up to sundown. So in the midst of you doing all these prayers, you still can't eat. And fasting is like you still can't drink anything either. So people be like, can't you still have water? No.
Wow.
Can't even drink water. So as far as my day to day, I usually it's kind of hard because the hours that you're awake and you're praying, you can't eat. And then the hours that you're allowed to eat, you're typically asleep. Like, sometime after the sun goes down. So a lot of people really are only able to get in like 1 or 2 meals before they go to sleep and have to do the whole cycle all over again. And they have to stay up mad late to do that. But I usually wake up at 6 to do my first prayer. And then after that prayer, I'll eat for the last time before the sun comes up. And then I'll go back to sleep for a while, wake up to do the next prayer, and then fast all the way through the day. And then you just eat real late the first time after the sun goes down. And then you can maybe squeeze in one more meal, maybe, if you don't fall asleep for the night.
Right, because you want to be asleep. Wow, that's different. So us, as in you guys and myself, I really don't know anything about Ramadan and whatnot. So all of like the questions that I'm asking her are definitely going to be questions that I have for her, but also like we want you guys to ask any questions because she's newly converted, basically. Like has it been a year yet? Not even a year yet. Right. Yeah, so you're freshly converted. So like anyone who wants to convert or is thinking about converting can reach out to you or ask you questions, right?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think that's why I wanted to get on here and talk about it specifically because I feel like even as a newly converted Muslim, that my perspective is appreciated by a lot of people. A lot of people ask me, what made you convert? Everybody asks me, like, as soon as somebody finds out I'm Muslim or I tell them I'm Muslim, they're like, wow, what made you do that? What made you convert? So I was like, this would be a good time to like really explain a little bit of my background and how I got to that point.
Okay, so with that being said, so what was your reason behind converting? And then I guess my biggest question would be like, what did you convert from? Like, what did you pick Muslim for over what you already were as a religion or what you grew into?
Right. So I grew up Christian. I actually have 2 pastors or whatever female version of a pastor is in my family. My grandma was heavily invested in taking us to church every Sunday as well as my mom. So I grew up Christian as far as what I was learning as religion. And then, I don't know, I guess in adulthood, when it becomes a choice whether you go to church, like we all know how to pray, So it switched to like, okay, that's a personal thing as long as you're still praying, you still accept the religion as your faith. And then eventually stopped going to church. It became a choice. Life happened. I'm like, wow, I really got distracted and I got away from God. And I just started seeing all the harsh things that happen in the world, all the hatred, and basically people like living unlawfully and people living in a lot of sin. And I'm like, this is probably the reason I'm lost, because I'm seeing this more than I'm talking to God. So I'm like, okay, I really need to get back into religion. And at first I was like, I don't know how I feel about religion, because you watch people call themselves religious and do all these sinful things, and it makes you feel like, is that the religion or is that the person?
Right.
So I was like, well, if I'm going to get back into what everybody else considers religion, I'm going to make it personal. So I actually had a friend, and he was heavily invested in, you know, his practices as a Muslim, and I really like looked up to that. I'm like, wow, to be able to have like that much restraint in society to this day, I'm like, that's incredible.
Definitely.
So I was like, maybe I should look into that, because I respected it. So I feel like the first reason that I looked into being Muslim was because I really respected it. But that's also because of somebody that I seen do it. Like, had I seen another Muslim who was like being negative in some way, maybe that would have deferred me. But I feel like God brought me to this religion, and he showed me the right way into it by putting an example in my life. So yeah, I guess the main reason was because I was getting too far from God and I felt lost. I was depressed a lot. I've always believed in God, but I respected that in the Muslim community there was structure, like, hey, pray. You know what I mean?
Right.
This is like, don't pray when you need something. It's pray when you want to express gratitude to God. Like, all 5 of those prayers is expressing gratitude to God. And I was like, wow, it's the first time like I'm not really asking for anything. I'm just showing God that I appreciate being here.
Yeah.
So I respected that. And it's not that you can't ask for anything, but this is why I started to grow to love the religion. And on top of that, I was telling you how we pray 5 times a day. So, well, you're supposed to pray 5 times a day. It was like, it felt like a form of meditation. And that's the other thing that really like got me. I'm like, wow, like you really just sit here and have this relationship with God, no matter where you're at. It's basically telling you, get down on your knees and submit to God. I'm like, nothing is more, you can't dedicate yourself more than that. So I was like, even if I become Muslim and all I can do is really pray, I'm like, that's all God really wants for me, you know? So it was the other thing. And then when I finally talked to an imam, which is like a, you know, preacher's church, imam is like the person who kind of tells you about the Quran.
Okay.
So that, in that perspective, that's what it is. So I reached out to one, and I was, once I got to Texas, and I was like, you know, do I have to like know everything about the religion before I convert? And he was like, do you believe that there's only one God? I was like, absolutely, never stop believing that. And then the other part of it was just, do you believe that Muhammad was basically the last prophet or the last one to receive the message from God? And it was like, yeah, like after looking into it, I do. Like, you can look up like the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and you'll see like he's like one of the greatest people on earth. I was like, okay, well, definitely gonna believe that if Google says it. No, that's crazy, but if Google says it is a fact.
Definitely.
As long as it's not Wikipedia.
Right.
But I was like, yeah, I do believe those 2 things. And then I started thinking to myself, I'm like, when I was a Christian, I didn't know anything before I was like, I'm Christian. You know what I mean? Like, I was going to church before I could speak.
Right.
You know, and I accepted that as a religion, and that's, I don't want to say that's crazy, but like that's how people come into things. Like, I'm telling people I'm a Christian. I didn't even understand the 10 Commandments at that time. Right. So I'm like, do I feel like I have a personal relationship with God? Yes. And do I feel like Muhammad is the last prophet? Yes. So I'm like, I can accept this as my religion. And I think people get distracted from that idea, because when they think of Muslims, they think of people who don't eat pork and say assalamu alaikum, which I can't stand when people say that.
Me neither. Honestly, because I was going to say, because I know once I figured out how to exactly say it, it's like when other people say it, it's like when you hear people trying to like speak another language, but like they try to like and they try to like make it so like English version, and it's like, ew,
that's not right.
Don't say it at all.
Yeah,
just don't say it at all.
So yeah, and I feel like they also see it as, you know, women who are supposed to be in hijabs all day long, and
right,
you know, it's a lot of things that people think Islam is that it is not necessarily.
So what would you say could be like some of your, is there anything as you were converting, you saying you didn't know exactly everything before, when you first came to them, but like as you were learning, as you were actually, you know, like participating in this religion, did you have any struggles? Is there anything that you feel like you may or may not even actually believe in, you know? Because what if they asked you that question and like that wasn't something that you knew about, or it wasn't something that you believed in, but this is what you wanted to choose as your religion, like?
Right. And that does happen. When I first converted, I went to a masjid, and I had to utter basically my beliefs in Arabic. And I grew a lot of respect for my imam because he was telling us, like, he was teaching us, like, it is really our job to question things. And as much as people, like, these are holy books, and you're like, somebody wrote this because they knew what was going on, you know? Right. So you don't want to feel like, oh, I want to question anything about this. But at the same time, things are always being misinterpreted to fit a narrative for people to feel comfortable about the things that they're doing. So when I'm listening, you know, to the words of the Quran, I'm like, I haven't run into anything that I've disagreed with just yet, as far as what's in the Quran and how I've been taught. There's cultural practices from people who identify as Muslim that I don't agree with.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people, for instance, think we have to wear the hijab. We don't. Like, even my sister will be like, if I answer the phone with my head uncovered, she'll be like, as my sister, she's not Muslim, but she'll be like, where's your hijab? But she expects you
to have it on.
Right. So I feel like the expectation of me has definitely changed since I decided to convert to Islam. The cultural practices are a little different. Like I said, here, most American women, we understand it's a choice. But that's not what Islam itself teaches. You know what I mean? Like, that's not something that would be in the Quran where you show hatred in any way because somebody made a choice that's ultimately not hurting anybody else. So there is some discrepancies when I learn about the people who practice it and some of their extreme practices, and I'm like, either that's not Islam or it's Islam, and I definitely don't agree with it. You know what I mean? So that's why I decided, like, this is a personal journey as much as I say that I am a Muslim. If there is something that I read that I don't agree with because it is either too harsh on humanity or it really just doesn't make sense, I'm going to disagree with it and pray to God later that I'm right, you know, like, or ask for forgiveness in that way. And that's the other reason I really loved what I've come to know about being Muslim, because the relationship I have with God now is that he's forgiving, you know, and he's understanding, and he knows that we're full of sin. Definitely. And all he's asking you to do is come and admit that, express gratitude, and try to do better. I feel like the God that I knew when I was Christian, all the same God, but perception, I'm like, wow, I'm going to get punished. I'm going to go to hell for everything. Right. You know what I mean? Literally. And it's not even that it's not said in the Muslim community, but it's like now I've accepted it differently because I've grown to understand things differently. And I know I'm not going to hell for every little thing, but I feel like I had to grow to a certain place to be able to receive messages like that. So if there is anything that I ever truly don't agree with, I'm going to stand on it. And that's it.
Wow. I'm learning so much. I love this. So what difference does it make when wearing the hijab than when not? Even, like, as you say, like, if I see you with it, I'm like, oh, you know, like, she is supposed to be wearing that. And if I see you without, I'm like, oh, she's not wearing it today. So what's the difference between when you are wearing it and when you're not? Or, I mean, you know, at least your reasoning behind it, or your, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I want to come on here with humility and just say it is very difficult for a woman to walk out of her house and be covered up head to toe. That is very difficult. So when people always ask me where's my hijab at, I don't want to say I take offense to it, but it hurts me a little bit because I understand that it's haram, but it's like I don't want to be reminded of that every day because I'm not wearing it. You know what I mean? People commit sins in so many other ways, and I feel like once I say I'm Muslim and I don't have my hijab on, everybody's like, oh my God, this is the end of the world. What is she gonna do? And I'm just like, do you know, like, behind closed doors I'm praying? Do you know that behind closed doors I'm giving, like, constantly to the homeless or to donating to different agencies and stuff like that? Like, do you know that I'm kind at heart? Do you know that I'm refraining from so many other sins right now? And it's like, when I don't wear my hijab, people are like, right. It's like,
Right.
Wearing a hijab is not what makes you, you know, a good Muslim or a bad Muslim. It just takes a lot of discipline to be able to walk out the house like this every day, especially as a woman. There's different kinds. I guess they're not all considered hijabs. There's different names for them, but there's different kind of head coverings. You'll see women with ones like this where they can show their face. There are people with their whole chin cut off, their whole nose to their chin cut off. There's people who wear like these single drapes. It's really, and when I was looking into it, I'm like, God, please tell me, like, other than maybe obvious reasons, what really is the point of the hijab? And originally, it's like God wants you to cover up because he wants you to be modest for him. We're not even supposed to just cover up. Like, the hijab is not just about what you wear, it's like who you're supposed to be as a person. So once you put that hijab on and you're wearing the face of the religion, it's like you're, everything you do is picked at a little bit more, because now it's like, you're Muslim, I know you're Muslim, and I know you're not supposed to be doing this, and I know you're not supposed to be doing that. So in a way that it's made it different for me, it made me feel like I need to be more disciplined as a person, as well. But the hijab is also supposed to protect you. I was reading up on other things, and you know how men look at us when we have on tight clothes or we're revealing too much. So then when I was reading deeper, it was also saying like, hey, we also want you to cover this up so that people love you for who you are as a person, and you're not being catcalled down the street and harassed by men. And this, you know, is also a sexist thing when it comes to what women should wear, so that they can be less demonized by men, is a story on its own. But ultimately, it's a choice. But I feel like God did put it there so that we can express modesty, be the face of the religion, and also to kind of protect ourselves from predator. So,
and then it's what do men have to wear, or what do men wear?
So here's the other thing. Men are also supposed to reserve their bodies in certain ways, but let's be honest, we're not looking at men's elbows. You know what I mean? Like, oh, men should cover up head to toe. It's like, what are we looking at on men that we care if we could see their kneecaps? You know what I mean? So in a way, like, they're supposed to cover here and here. Like, they're not supposed to walk around shirtless, and you know, and some will even, like, if you look in certain places, it'll say they're not even supposed to be wearing shorts. Like, they're supposed to be covered knee up. But you know, like, nobody ever asked a Muslim man, where's your kufi at? You know what I mean? Where's your hijab? They just like, where's your, nobody's like,
I would see the head wearing for men, and I don't always see them wearing it. So it's like, I know it's not something that they have to, like, it's not just a woman thing, you know. Men have their head wearing too, but I've seen kufis before. I know I have some Muslim background in my family. It's just I was brought up into a Christian family just as well, so I've seen a little, so I know kind of like, I have an idea of it. But of course, anyone who isn't fully converted is not going to know as much as like you do. But also, speaking of men, because I have like a little bit of background, because I did hear something. Men, like, they can have like multiple wives.
It is true.
Is that like a
yes?
So like what we would call it is like the polygamous, and it's become a really popular topic lately, which is kind of crazy. And it's like, I feel like that's like part of the Muslim religion and like the traditions, right? Like, men have multiple wives.
So this is another cultural thing, because right. So is it a thing? Yes. So technically, men are allowed to have 4 wives, but here's the catch. First of all, your wife has to agree to you having other wives. This is not like, oh, I'm giving, like, you can go out and cheat. This is not that. Because, you know, a lot of men think, oh, like, I can have 4 wives. That means I can have sex with 4 women. Like, yeah, but you know what else that means? That means you got to raise 4 different women's kids. You give one woman a kid. You might have to give them all the kid. You have to give them all time and attention. Like, you have to divide everything that you have equally. And for people who believe, like, an old school way of taking care of women as well, is like, you're the provider. So now you're providing for 4 women too. It's not just like, oh, you could sleep with 4 women, have 4 wives. That's the end all be all. This is not no deadbeat husband situation. This is like, this is a grown man taking care of all 4 of his women, and the first wife has to agree to this. So it's not as simple as people think it is. And honestly, in America, I don't even know if, like, on paper you can actually marry 4 people. Like, don't you have to be divorced? Like, you can. I'm not even sure how.
Like, I think even, that's what I was saying. I think even if you do like a polygamous relationship in America, I feel like it's like you can have a wife and you can have someone else.
Right. Right. But in the court of law in America, one wife is all you're ever going to see on paper.
Right.
And that's why it's like, God did say that, but at this point it's definitely become more of a cultural practice, because I don't believe in America they allow that. And if I'm wrong, feel free to correct me with grace, of course, but I don't even think you can do that. But yeah, the end all be all is absolutely they can have 4. Wife has to be okay with it, and he has to divide his time, his money, his attention between 4 people. So when y'all think about that,
equally,
take one wife.
Equally,
take one wife.
Like emphasis on the equally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that was I definitely wanted to touch on that, because I felt like that was a popular topic in today's society, and it's part of the culture. All right, so that's really like my last question. Of course, like I said, I want to open the comments. I want to open everything. I want you guys to ask her as many questions as you can, because I feel like her conversion was really big for her. So I know that it's going to be somebody out there who, is interested and wants to ask her questions. But before we get off, I feel like you should maybe give us a word of advice for anyone thinking about converting, and anything that you feel like you should still let us know, or that you want people to know about you and your conversion and your new religion.
Okay. Well, I definitely do want to encourage people to understand that any religion that you choose is more about your relationship with God than it is about anybody teaching you about a religion. And I do, and I'm saying this because I know a lot of people who consider themselves spiritual, and between my transition between Christianity and Muslim, I was like, all right, I'm spiritual, because I've accepted that God is the one and only, and he's all I believe in. But at the same time, I'm not agreeing with everything Christians are doing, and I'm not sure what all the other religions are even about to like officially convert to them. So I will say that what pushed me mainly into Islam is just being accepted the way I was off rip. So when I first got to Texas and I was trying to figure out how do I even go about converting, like I said, I had a friend who had a lot of years of experience, I guess I would say, as being Muslim, and he had told me, he was like, well, you can find a good masjid, which is like the equivalent of a church, and reach out to the imam and ask them, to go to help you convert. And I was extremely nervous, because I'm like, not only am I in a new city, a new state, I don't know anybody. This is my first time even walking in a masjid in my life, and I'm like, I'm supposed to say this in front of other people that I've never met, and I have to be, as fluent as possible, and I don't speak Arabic. Right. So everything from this point I'm learning. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I really love the fact that I've learned Arabic. I've learned to pray in Arabic, and I love that. I definitely love that. But I'm like, how am I going to do this? And it is just the most like overwhelming feeling, but at the same time it felt right. It wasn't overwhelming to the point where it turned me away. It was overwhelming, like, I'm about to embrace something that's for me.
This is big.
You know what I mean? Like, this is big. Yeah. So I'm like, I have to do this, as scared as I was. And I don't ever try to convince anybody to believe what I believe, especially if there's things that you can easily disagree with or rebuttal based on what you've grown up to understand.
Right.
And that's the other thing I really appreciated about Islam, because even in the beginning of the Quran, the stuff that I can read and understand, it's like, we are taught to love and accept people for who they are, like to the point where we're allowed to marry Christians and Jews. And to me, I'm like, what is the big deal? Like, we can marry Christians and Jews. Like, what is everybody fighting over religion for, if technically? And that's when I understood that it is way more simple than what everybody makes it seem. It is one thing. Do you believe that there is only one God? Yes. Like, everything else is like, all right, this is minute, it's arguable, it's not enough that you should want to be hostile towards anybody else or hate anybody else. And I'm like, cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Wow,
it makes sense to me that way. And I don't know, it was just a lot of things that made sense to me, and I was like, I could work with this.
I feel like that's all that really matters. And like, you keep hitting on that part where it's like, once you agree to that, it's After that, it's your journey.
Yeah.
After that, it's your, you know what I'm saying? And I feel like that's how you should feel in your religion. And the whole part where you were saying, it's like, this is a religion that you sought out. So it's like everything that you're learning is what you're actually interested in. So it's like, you know what I'm saying? So I actually want to know this, and I want to make it make sense to what I'm doing and whatnot. So I admire that. I really do. I think I'm in that spiritual transition. So it's like feel like I've kind of lost my, you know, my want to be in the Christianity category. So I was like, okay, I'm drop my religion and become spiritual.
Right.
So I'm heavy on spiritual. Like I'm big on my spirit and positive spirits and all that stuff. So I'm in my spiritual journey right now. But now it's kind of like you're kind of giving me like, okay, maybe I should start looking into a religion, even though like I still feel like I would still live comfortably in my spirituality,
right?
Because like I can still pray and I can still believe in what I believe in. I can still practice, you know, things that I grew up on and things that I even learned to this day. Like I can still read the Bible, or I feel like I can read any Bible. You know what I'm saying?
You can read any religious text, and then what you can do from there is decide what you believe and what settles right with you and what makes sense to you.
Right. Not saying I'm gonna make my own religion,
right?
But I could definitely make this my own journey.
But honestly, that is what people have done, and that's why there's so many different religions. Even under Christianity, don't they have like Methodist and Catholic and this, you know what I mean? So everything has been up to interpretation, and it's rough to say. So when you ask me like, hey, is there anything you don't agree with? And I used to feel like, bro, you can't say like you disagree with anything about the religion. Like you can't just say that because you're going to be looked at crazy, one, or two, it's going to be looked at as haram. Like you can't just be questioning things that you said you believe in. And then I'm like, bro, all these branches of Christianity, and there's Jews and there's Hindu and there's Buddhism, like everybody has worked to question a religion and create their own so that it makes sense to them. And not their own, but you know what I mean? Like create a following of things that they believe. So I'm like, I'm not going to hesitate to question anything, even if I don't necessarily agree with it, because the only thing that makes me Muslim is the fact that I believe there's only one God and Muhammad was the last prophet. Yeah. You know? So I'm excited. I'm excited to continue my journey. I also asked that you guys comment and let me know what you think. My entire standpoint is from a newly committed Muslim. It hasn't even been a year. Yeah. It hasn't even been a year. There are other things that I've struggled with, like I've mentioned, wearing the hijab. It takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot of discipline. I want to feel like a woman. If you want me to be honest, I want to feel like a woman. It's very difficult for me to figure out how to dress and be clothed head to toe, especially in the summer. And I just moved to Texas. I'm like, I am struggling. Right. I don't need, people to ask me all the time, where's your hijab? And I knew this was one of the things I was struggling with. So I feel like, I remember in the beginning I was telling you that Ramadan is also about your personal journey, your personal struggles. And that's why I was like, okay, at least these 30 days, let me try my best to cover my head, because I know that that's what Allah wants. Yeah. You know what I mean? So like I'm doing everything that I can right now, especially within these 30 days, to really show that I have an appreciation and a respect for not just the religion, but for God himself. And I think it helps me accept, like, hey, you're a sinner and God knows that. I feel like a lot of us do things and we're like, we try to justify it when we can really just say, I've sinned, or I'm sinning, or this is haram and I'm still doing it because it's in my nature, or because I'm not ready to change. Like, I feel like a lot of people just have to accept that. And converting to Islam has helped me accept that I can be real with myself and still be forgiven. Does that make sense? Like, I can still do all these things I'm not supposed to do, and at the end of the day, God is my judge, and I'll ask him for forgiveness when this is all said and done. And being Muslim has taught me that. Wow. Yeah. Lovely. So did you know that I don't know if these are cultural practices or if this is in the Quran, so I have to tread lightly. A man's money is their money, but her money is her money. You're saying, so my money is my money. His money is our money. It's our money. Wow. Run it. Run it. It really, definitely, most definitely. It really, like, and that's where when it comes down to it, it's like, you can't just believe in a religion when it works for you. You know what I mean? Like, you can't pick and choose. Well, you can pick and choose. Hijab, no hijab. Hijab, no hijab. You can't pick and choose, but you cannot judge others if you're still in your pick and choose phases.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, I don't know. There's just a couple of funny things I learned. And then the other thing was like, oh, men can't wear gold. I guess it's feminine. I don't know. I didn't look too far into it, but men shouldn't wear them. When I say can't and I say shouldn't, I mean, it's been said.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I can't confirm or deny it's been said. What else did I learn?
That's funny. Like, no jewelry.
Yeah. Well, they can wear silver. They cannot wear gold. Gold. They can't wear gold.
Women can.
Yes, I believe women can. And I just want to clarify why we're not supposed to eat pork. Because people I don't know what people think it is. But...
No, because I need to know. I need to know why we can't order certain appetizers because she can't eat pork.
First of all, pork is disgusting whether you're religious or not.
Like,
you gotta get around to it.
It's just like, I just can't live a life without eating bacon. I can't.
Okay, so it's really like the simplest thing on the planet. Pork is considered haram because it is dirty. Pigs are dirty. They roll around in mud and they eat whatever passes through. They eat carcass, which is the animals. Like, pigs are the dirtiest of the dirtiest. And if I'm being honest, I've also learned that it's not just pork that we're not supposed to eat. We're technically not supposed to eat animals that are not halal, which is like animals that haven't been sacrificed to God when they were killed. So you know what I mean? Like, if I go to a Chinese restaurant and I eat chicken, I know them Asians did not say, first of all, it might be cat. Asians did not say.
Or dog.
I know they did not offer up the cat and the dog to God before they killed it. You know what I mean? Like, it's supposed, like, to be considered halal. That's why you see, like, halal trucks, or they'll say, comment, like, the food is halal.
There's a halal restaurant here in Dallas. Oh my gosh, what is it called?
Please find it. Put us on as a unit.
I tried it and it's amazing.
It was delicious.
The halal guys.
You know why?
And they have this.
God first.
Definitely. And they have this sauce. I like the sauce.
This is a sauce.
I like the sauce. You gotta get, well, one, I don't do anything other than like beef. So, of course, I got the beef. Beef? Gyro? Gyro.
Gyro? Is it gyro or
gyro?
Gyro?
The beef platter. Beef platter, try their sauce. That's just a Texas thing. So anybody following, the group chat DTX, if you're in the DTX, definitely try the halal guys just because she brought that up. It's good food. But
for sure.
Yes.
For sure.
I understand that part. That makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. And honestly, I feel like every animal, that's just something that now I'm thinking, I'm like, wow, okay, I respect that. Yeah. Because it's like, sometimes I be thinking like, who started just killing these animals?
Like,
when we can eat the stuff that grows out the ground.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it makes you think. And that's why I'm like, y'all
taking
really
their babies.
This.
Oh my God, cooking their kids. Sorry, but like, think about it. The chicken's eggs, they don't even get to watch their kids grow up.
They didn't even crack.
Right. Like, dang.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's just a whole nother thing that I just started to think about as you said that. But yeah, so I do respect that in that culture, in that religion, that they they don't want to eat the animals that aren't sacrificed to God. I feel like we should sacrifice every animal to God, because it's like, wow, we're just taking away your creation just because we're greedy.
Right. Because we're just don't want to be innovative in other ways. We want to take the easy way out.
Right.
But like, this is what I'm saying. Like, this is what I've respected about the religion. Even if there's certain things that I can't uphold on my end, I eat meat faithfully. I don't care for the pork. I eat meat faithfully. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like, and this is the other thing I want to tell people, if they convert, you have to understand that you have lived a life full of other cultural practices, other things that you do because your environment, other things that you do because you grew up that way, or you went to school here, or you learned this, or you have these kind of friends. Like, there's a lot of things that people feel like they have to unlearn or undo immediately when they convert to a religion. It is just not true, and it is very unrealistic. And I feel like that's another reason people got away from religion because they're like, y'all asking me to do a lot of stuff that in my nature, I'm not just going to stop doing.
Right.
And you have to understand that as a person. And that's why I'm like, my journey with God is personal because I know I'm a sinner. I know there's stuff I'm doing that I'm not supposed to be doing. I do feel like ever since I converted, though, that I am much more gracious with the things that I do.
Like with yourself?
With myself. I have much more intention with my actions. Like, I make a conscious effort to sin much less. I don't drink as much. I don't have sex as much. And I know that's like, but it's true. I'm keeping it a bean. Like, I'm proud of myself. And I feel like I only got there because I gave myself grace and understood, like, I was sinning. And I'm not perfect. And I'm going to sin again. And I'm going to sin again. But now I sin in moderation. You know what I mean? And that's also why I struggle to wear the hijab sometimes, because I'm like, people just think you wear this hijab and all of a sudden you're the perfect person. Like, and that is just not true.
Right.
You know what I mean? You are still a person at the end of the day, and I don't want anybody to let religion make you feel like you can't be a human being. It's just not how it goes. Wow. And even after I converted, there's some things that I've been even more uncomfortable with. Like, when I wear my hijab and I see other people wearing their hijabs, I kind of get a little nervous talking to them. One, because a lot of people have this idea that when I wear my hijab, I guess it looks like I'm from a different country. A lot. People constantly ask me, where are you from? And then some people will follow with saying, oh, because you wear the hijab. Or, you know, I don't know. I do have some like very specific features that you can see more when I have my hijab on. A lot of people ask me what country I'm from. I'm just like, y'all, I'm from here. I chose God. That's it. But I get tired of explaining that to people over and over again because people, it re-solidifies that people have this idea that when you're Muslim, like, you grew up that way, or your parents were this way, or you learned that in another country, or you know, and I get a little nervous because I'm like, even when people from other countries who talk to me and they're Muslim and they say things to me in Arabic, like, people will try to have full conversations with me in Arabic, and I'm like, I don't know what you're saying. Like,
really?
I can say very short phrases, and like I said, I've learned how to pray in Arabic, like, and I take pride in those things. But still, it shakes me up a little bit to be speaking to people, and I'm like, they all have this idea, whether positive or negative, of what I am because I wear my hijab.
Right.
You know, so it gets a little difficult, but I wouldn't take it back for anything. I love it here. I love the discipline. I love the restraint. I love that it gives me a sense of community. I love that it gives me a sense of being gracious with myself. And I love ultimately that it has brought me closer to God in times where I was down bad and I'm like, I can talk to God, but I'm talking to God because I need something. Now I'm talking to God because I appreciate God. You know what I mean? So I've just learned so much just from converting alone. And that's why I'm like, no matter what you convert to, let it be about you and your journey. Like, if there's a whole nother religion that's bringing you closer to your truth, that's the religion that you ultimately need to represent.
Exactly. Definitely. So proud of you.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing everything with us.
You're welcome.
We'll definitely, hopefully, spark some conversation in the comments.
For sure.
But yeah, I love this for you. So,
well, groupies, I want to thank you guys for getting to know me on a not just a spiritual, not just a deeper, but really on a more godly level. And I really appreciate this platform so I can be able to explain that. Everything you guys see on these episodes are not just, this is like who me and Drea are as people. We're not used to doing this and that and this and that. It's like these collectively are who we are as people. And I just wanted to show that I am also a Muslim African American woman on the forefront as well.
Yes, girl. All right, tune in for our next episode
where we get to know Drea a little better. Bye,
yeah,
groupies.
Girl. See ya.